Okay. So I can't take this no more. I saw a clip, Star Trek Strange New Worlds. It was from season 2. Right? I saw a clip on YouTube again and I'm like, okay, I have to say something about this. I have all sorts of ideas about this that I need to put somewhere. Might just keep it on my phone or anyway. So they were like, in time travel, right? In time travel, don't interact with past events. I'm like, okay, fair enough. Let's see what else you got, right? They're like, no sharing knowledge of the future, right? And I'm okay. I imagine that means don't, whatever knowledge you come across in the future, don't bring it back. Okay, interesting. And then it just got me, just those 2 points alone just got me thinking. So don't interact with past events, don't share knowledge that you come across, right? And yeah, these are just some of the ideas, just off the top, some of the ideas that just quickly came to me as I thought about those 2 points, right? Hopefully it's not too windy. I'm just gonna speak regardless. And the main critique I have of this, and it's not just of this show, it's of every single show that I've seen. And maybe there's something I'm missing, but these don't seem rigorous enough. These are not rigorous enough, at least in the Orville. In the Orville, there seemed to be indication that there was some kind of rigorous training to manage the complexities of time travel. So the Orville showed that, okay, we're not just saying, oh, don't interact with the past or don't bring knowledge from the future, blah, blah, blah. It just seemed like that was the first time I said, okay, you know what? Maybe there is actually rigorous training that's being provided to people that are time travelers, right? So, that was a weird camera angle. Yeah, on those 2 points alone, I was like, if that's all you have, that's not rigorous enough, first of all. Secondly, it seems like some form of very sophisticated manipulation. Because imagine, and it just dawned on me, imagine there's some kind of organization, right, where there are members within that organization, some sort of secretive organization. Just a thought experiment here. Just consider the possibility that there's some kind of secretive organization with whose members actively time travel. Okay? Those within this organization are actively time traveling, right? And they're going back into the past, they're going into the future, they're interacting with various beings and people from the past, from the future. They're bringing knowledge back. They're doing all sorts. They're doing all of that. But then they come back and they tell you, nah, you don't do that. Right? So what if there was such an organization that existed with members time traveling, seemingly flouting all of those rules and then telling you not to. Right? And that raises some very interesting questions for me. Why would someone do that? Why would such an organization do that? Right? And then tell you not to. Why would they be time traveling, interacting with past elements, interacting with the future, bringing knowledge back, sharing knowledge, all sorts of stuff, and then they tell you not to do that? Right? And then I have this, that's the thing with ideas. They're kind of like dominoes. Once you consider one idea, there's a whole bunch of ideas that are coming down the pipeline. Excuse me, anyway. And then another question dawned on me. This video is probably just going to be a list of questions, right? What if this? What if that? What is this? What is that? Right? So the first question is, what if such an organization exists? one with members that are actively time traveling and seemingly flouting every single one of those rules. Number two, the second question is, what counts as interaction, right? How do you define interacting with the past or the future or the present or anything? How is that defined? It doesn't seem like there's any active definition to define these things, at least in a rigorous enough way, because at least in my mind, any action, so long as you appear in a different timeline, let's say you go back into the past somehow, so long as you appear there and you can be perceived by another conscious being, in my mind, that's interaction. You're interacting with them. Now, you could argue that, so long as they're not aware that you're actually from the past or the future or whatever it is, so long as they don't know who you are, then it's not really an interaction that you need to worry too much about, right? The only time you need to worry is the moment they become aware of who you are. Then some more interesting questions come up. But if they're not aware of who you are, then there are no major issues. But I don't know about that, though. I don't know about that. I don't know if that's actually sound reasoning. Because how would you then define awareness, their awareness, right? Because you might come back and say, okay, even though they don't see me, and I'm not gonna, or even though they see me, and I'm not gonna tell them that I'm a time traveler, obviously, right? So you show up and you're like, okay, they can see me, but I'm not gonna tell them that I'm a time traveler. You don't know if some of the actions that to you seem trivial, to them might be very significant. So, first of all, what is classed as interaction? Secondly, what's also classed as awareness? What to you seems trivial, to them might seem like, whoa, hold on now. That doesn't seem like something we do here. Where did you get such knowledge from, right? So that's another thing. That's another set of questions. So first we have the question of, this organization. What if there's organizations that exist that, time travel, but then they tell you not to time travel? And then the question of defining interaction. What is classed as an interaction? How do you define an interaction? And how do you define awareness? Right? If you say, okay, don't tell them that you're a time traveler, you can show up there, you can be seen, but just don't tell them. That, in my mind, again, doesn't pass any sort of rigorous tests here. For me, the question is about rigor. These are not rigorous enough. These are not rigorous standards. I want to see some course that imagines, the guide to time traveling. Maybe it already exists and I just haven't seen it yet, or seen it in the way I need to see it. But yeah, that's an interesting line of reasoning for me. What is interaction? What is awareness? What to you may seem trivial, to them may seem, oh hell no, that ain't from here. That's some future shit, right? So we need to define those things. What's interaction? What's awareness? Or what's consciousness? How do you define how conscious someone is? Because unless you've figured out a way of becoming invisible, and even then, there might still be questions that need to be raised. But I ain't trying to get into all that today, man. Nah, right? Because imagine, the only way you could say, oh, okay, you know what? Someone left some books here. What's this? Come back and take a picture of that. Maybe a time traveler left that shit. Look at that. Where's that? Yeah. Anyway. Yes. Oh, unless you've somehow figured out how to be invisible, to not be seen, to not be perceived, then you may be fine. But what if your sort of technology that you've built, that maybe you're some future being and you've come back into the past to sort of raise the awareness of the people. I don't know, right? And you've somehow found a way of concealing yourself. It would seem reasonable to surmise perhaps that, you know, the technology you've figured out to conceal yourself, maybe you can't really conceal yourself forever, or there's a time limit for how long you can conceal yourself, or, you know, there are limits to these things. How long can you hide yourself from, if you were a future being? How long can you actually hide yourself, conceal yourself using some kind of technology? But yeah, some interesting questions there. What is interaction? What is, you know, what is awareness? What is, how do you define awareness? Anyway, let's go back to this question of the organization. If such an organization did exist, then, what's this? Then I would imagine that the reason why they wouldn't be too thrilled of your existence. This new kid on the block that's now time traveling. And the reason why they wouldn't be too thrilled is because they would now have to account for your existence. I would imagine that everyone that's time traveling needs to be part of some kind of club, some kind of, I don't know, database maybe, right? They all need to know each other to say, oh, this is what I'm doing. I'm going to sort of explore this section, this part of the world, or whatever it is, or this time period. And I'll come back, I'll tell you what I found, blah, blah, blah. I would imagine certain very specific parameters need to be in place. Otherwise, it could end up being a very chaotic environment. This is just, you know, just my imagination, just, you know, set loose for a minute. There would need to be a way to know everyone that's capable of time traveling, at least at very advanced levels, because I imagine some people are probably able to, you know, just do it just a little bit, you know what I mean? They're not too advanced. And then there are people that are able to travel major distances, like do some next level stuff that's like, whoa, hold on now. Nah. Right? So if such an organization existed, they would have to know everyone pretty much that can time travel at very, very great, that's able to really, really time travel, right? There's time travelers and then there's time travelers, you know what I mean? There's like people that are like, oh shit, that's some next level stuff right there. So first of all, they would need to know who's time traveling, who has great capabilities of time traveling, and then they would also need to account for whatever this person, let's say there's some new time traveler, they would need to account for what they're doing. Where are they going? Where's that person going? What knowledge are they looking for? What knowledge did they find? What technology did they bring back? What technology are they taking? What knowledge are they taking or are they sharing with future or the past beings? Now, and then that raised a very interesting question. What was it? Shit, did I lose the question? Oh. And then what if there are people that are time traveling, but they don't really know that they're time traveling? They think, oh, you know, it's just a game, or it's just storytelling, or it's just this, or it's just that. But in truth, no, they're actually time travelers, right? You would imagine time travel requires sort of physical devices, you know? We're led to believe in this sort of, you know, button world, that if you can't push buttons, if you can't do this with your hands and, oh, here, beep, 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 then nothing is happening. Which, as I've come to find recently, it's actually completely bogus of an idea, right? But yeah, what if there are people that are time traveling that don't even know that they're time traveling? They don't even know. They think, oh, it's just dreaming, it's just video games, it's just this, it's just that. But no, no, no. They're actually time travelers and they don't even realize it, right? So, such an organization would have to account for a lot of different things, would have to account for any new entrants into the time travel world. And that would then mean the story just keeps going. It just keeps going. At this point, I'm just making a movie, and this is like the script. I'll probably put this into some kind of program to sort of give me a transcript of everything that I've said, and then I'll mold it up at some point in the future. But anyway, oh, such an organization, I imagine, would then have to sort of monitor what's happening around the world. Okay, that seems plausible to me. That seems like a reasonable proposition. They would have to monitor what's going on and say, okay, yeah, there's nothing much going on over there. Yeah, there's nothing much there. Oh, yeah, those guys are at least 100 years behind whatever we're doing. Don't worry about them. Oh, that guy right there, he's at the cutting edge of consciousness, cutting edge of perception. We need to keep a very close eye on what he's doing, okay? They would effectively be monitoring the spiritual temperature or the level of awareness, if we were to put it in less of such language. They would have to be monitoring this level of awareness, level of consciousness around the world to see what kinds of discussions are being had. Ooh, okay, boom. Ooh, what films are being made, what movies are being made. They would have to do all of that and more. What else do we have here? Oh, again, let's extend this organization a bit more. So this organization is doing a whole lot. They're accounting for new entrants into the time travel space. They're monitoring the levels of awareness across the world. So that means they would then have to have sort of different chapters, almost different sub-organizations in various countries, various cities. They would have to be secretive in some ways, but not too secretive that you can't really see them. There's a sort of fine balance between you're secretive, but you're not so secretive that it doesn't hinder you from potentially recruiting others that you deem to be either threats or potentially allies, right? So you need to strike that balance between oh, don't come here if you don't know what you're doing, but hey, we're open to new types of, anyway. What else we got over here? They would also, I would imagine, have to suppress certain knowledge. That seems plausible to me as well, right? Because if we're talking about time travel, something potentially dangerous, or with great implications, to be more specific, then it seems reasonable to say they would be actively engaged in suppressing certain knowledge, bolstering other kinds of knowledge. That seems reasonable. They would probably be engaged in sort of book burning, but not traditional book burning. How do you burn a book digitally? That's an interesting idea. Like I said, this video is just about questions. Imagine if you're some organization that's time traveling, doing all sorts of sophisticated, travel into the past, the future, the present, all sorts of stuff. You wouldn't want some of your knowledge to be just out there like that. So what do? You don't burn books. I mean, goodness gracious, you're not absolutely, right? You would have to be sophisticated in how you obscure certain material, certain knowledge from the public or those that you don't want to have access to that knowledge. Right? How do you do that? How do you prevent people from getting access to certain pieces of knowledge? in a way that they don't even have a clue what's going on. In a way that they're like, tra la 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 la, walking around like nothing's happening. Meanwhile, heavy stuff is going on in the background. How do you do that? And all of this, imagine, all of this just came from one, literally, a 10-second segment in a video that I saw. 10 seconds has led to all of this thinking. Time travel. Oh, don't interact with the past. Don't bring knowledge into the... Bitch, what if there are people that are doing that, but they don't want you to know about it? That's the plot of a great movie, I must conclude. And then there was something else that they said, in this 10-second segment. He said, okay, small changes here, and you won't feel anything. Right? You might make a small change and you won't feel anything. Again, no indication whatsoever what's classed as a change. It's taking a footstep a change, is looking at something a change, is staring at a leaf a change. You might say, oh, it's a leaf, it's not conscious, it's just a leaf. Really? Right? It's a rock, it's nothing. Really? In such a world, or in such a... If that's what we're talking about here, time travel, in such a case, then it's all consciousness. In which case, anything, regardless of how insignificant it may seem, could have major changes. She said, small changes here and you won't see anything, but it could destroy your future. And I'm like, right, it could destroy your future. That sounds like something, again, this organization would want to tell you, right? People that are actively engaged in time travel would want to tell you that, oh, no, don't time travel. If you do ever time travel, don't ever interact with the past, bring knowledge from the future, and above all else, right? Don't do this. Don't make any changes whatsoever. Just be there like a fly on the wall. Completely rubbish, by the way. Completely bogus idea that you can just be a fly on the wall. As a time traveler. Because if you make any change whatsoever, it could destroy your future. And the question that came to mind is, it could destroy which future? Which of my futures will it destroy? Which one? Because the moment you take such an action of going back, future, wherever you're going, you've in colloquial terms, you've branched off. It's done. There's a million pasts now. There's a million presents. There's a million futures. Which one of them are you destroying by an action that you're taking? Right? Such a simple statement, but it has such major implications. Which future are you destroying by a certain act that you're taking? Who came up with that term, with that idea that, again, I want to see a rigorous set of guidelines. One that engages in sort of deep philosophical discussions about what is interaction, what is classed as an interaction, what is classed as the past, what is the present, what is the future anyway? What are these things? We can't just take them to be, the past is da-da-da. Really? I would say that's actually the present, Oh yeah, right, well, fair enough. The future is this. Really? It's still the present to me. Right? So, yeah, man, I need definitions, yo. These movies, man, I need to see definitions next time. If I hear another movie talking about, don't interact with the past, don't interact with the present, the future, the this, the that, forget that. I need to see a detailed set of guidelines. It'd be cool if, I wonder if these shows, some of these shows that are made, the Orville, etc., I wonder if there are accompanying documents to them. Imagine if there was like, this is the constitution of the planetary, whatever it was called. Where's their constitution at? Some of these shows need to come out not just with the visuals, but there needs to be documents. I don't know, maybe it's there and I just haven't seen it yet, right? But where's the constitution of the United Planetary System of Government World Futures, whatever they're called then in the future? What's the constitution? Where are their guidelines? I want to see that. I want to see a show drop on time travel. Let's say it's some sort of like, oh, some guy has figured out that there's an organization out there in the world that with members who are time traveling, but then they actively discourage it, not because it's dangerous, but because they want to stay in control, right? It's about power, and ultimately it's about control. Because any new actors, any new time travelers that are traveling in very powerful ways could completely disrupt what they're doing, right? So it's not, don't time travel because it's evil or it's this or it's that, but because it's disruptive to power structures, right? If you are time traveling because you want to free yourself from, a bad situation that you're in, but potentially it's going to destroy what someone else is doing, damage, I don't know, it could have repercussions for them, but they won't tell you that. So that's another interesting question. How does someone sort of reel you in? How do they sort of tell you that, no, don't time travel? But they have to do it in a way that doesn't make it obvious that they're time travelers as well. That's such an interesting idea. How does someone time travel? How does someone tell you not to time travel, but not make it obvious that they're time traveling? There's too many questions here. I'm out of here, man. This shit is getting out of hand. My man came on and said, yo, let's ask questions. Bitch, we already have questions. We need answers. But the interesting thing is, within each of these questions, I think the answer is there. Right? In order for an organization to tell you not to time travel, without revealing themselves as time travelers, all sorts of very sophisticated acts need to happen. Okay? They have to be very clever in how they frame the message. Right? It's not dangerous because it's going to destroy your future, as if there's any one future in the first place. This idea that, if you go back in time, like there's still one future that you could come back, or one present that you could come back to. I think that's a bogus idea. That doesn't seem to compute. That doesn't seem to make sense to me, right? Which of the futures are you destroying if you decide to go into the past? Because I do not agree with the idea that there's any one future that you're coming back to. That is complete rubbish. Or one present that you're coming back to. What else did I write on this goddamn piece of paper? Small changes here and you won't feel anything but you might destroy future. Which future? Thank you very much. Which future will be destroyed? Okay? Oh, and I've already touched on this a little bit. Maybe there's a new entrance, right? Let's say in this film, this new movie, right? This is how I write movies, by the way. This is how I write poems. I just go out and I just think, I'm just making connections in my head, right? This time I'm just doing it out loud, because I see this as a major, major development. But anyway, let's say in this movie, there's some kind of character that's going around and he doesn't realize that he's actually constructed a very powerful time machine, right? That's enabling him to really, really sort of travel vast distances and make profound discoveries, right? He's seeing things in his dreams. Do you know what I mean? He's seeing things in movies. He's making all sorts of connections, right? He might write a song and not realize that that song is actually a depiction of various future events, right? Entangled in some way that he then has to sort of unravel upon listening to that music once it's been produced, right? So yeah, let's say there's this guy that comes across time travel technology, and then at some point he realizes that, oh shit, I think I'm actually time traveling. What the hell? Right? He's making great leaps in knowledge and understanding. He's like, this doesn't seem normal, right? I only started learning this yesterday, and now I'm a master of it today. People usually take 10 years learning this stuff. People are looking at him like, damn, how long have you been doing this? It's like, oh, just a couple of years. Like, what? No way. So at some point he realizes that, shit, what if I'm a time traveler? In which case, again, implications, the domino effect, the ideas of dominoes, the implications. If I'm a time traveler, then shit, then maybe there are other time travelers. Who are they? Where are they? Interesting. And how would other time travelers operate? So now he's trying to figure out who else is time traveling around him. What is the structure of the time travelers association, or whatever it's called? This organization of people that, are actively involved in travel through time and boundless space. At some point he's like, if such an organization exists, then they would likely be reaching out to me in one way or another, but then also try not to make their presence too obvious. Okay? So now he's mapping out the network of time travelers in his city and around the world. That's one hell of a story right there. Fuck all this, you can't interact with the past, you can't do this in the future. Nigga, who came up with that? Let me see a detailed document that maps out every single one of these arguments, these questions that I've posed, with proper definitions. I want to see definitions. I want to see very, very reasonable, powerful arguments. I want to see references too. If I don't see no reference, I want to see names and brackets with the years. And I don't want to see any books after the year 2020. Nah, fuck all them AI generated books, nigga. I want to see heavy publishers behind these books too. If I don't see no Harvard University Press, Princeton, Oxford, Cambridge, if I don't see them names in the reference list, get that out of here. What else did I write? So yeah, I think it's a cool idea to sort of frame one of the characters in this film as someone that's time traveling but doesn't actually know he's time traveling. Kind of like that movie. What's that movie? Absolutely Anything. Where he has powers and he slowly comes to terms with the fact that he does have these powers. Right? Yeah, that's it. I'm gone.